Hailing from Medarot Girls Mission in 2016 and one of the final 3DS titles released for the series around the time. It is SMJ00 Whip Whirl, with a kit of Dominion, Whip, Thunder Missile, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Follow-Up, which buffs users' heating stat when the target you are attacking cannot dodge incoming attacks. Now, Whip World is one of the few remaining models that Medarot S was missing from Medarot Girls Mission roster. So, with the introduction of her and Arachno Spider at time of recording, we're now only a couple models away from being at 100% completion. And, albeit the rather, unique motif that Whip World does bring to the table, her rather self-synergetic kit does guarantee that she can not only slow enemies down to a crawl, but also guarantee that while she's on the field, what she says goes, and no one leaves unless she says so. Dominion on the head part is a support skill that, when activated, serves as a twofold buff. The first of the buff is a radar sight buff, which is a 30% boost, which is a boost of success to all allies, but also negates any stealth or conceal effects of the enemy side. So if they're trying to hide from you or do a evade boost to keep the damage on the down low, the first half of Dominion, the radar sight buff, guarantees that's not going to happen whatsoever on her watch. The second half of Dominion is field control, which, when activated, will also convert all allies' leg terrain compatibility from whatever it was before to A rank. And if it wasn't already A rank or S rank, well, guess what? Now you can move freely on just about any terrain you're on with no regard whatsoever, or even having to worry about terrain, because now you're at A rank no matter what it was, which makes it fantastic for terrain such as aquatic or marine or snowy, which are terrains that very few leg abilities actually have good mastery on unless you're trying to go for a very specific build. Whip on the right arm, and to be honest, it was kind of expected that Whip Whirl was going to be having this attack. It's a melee attack that actually has two different kinds of roles. The first of which is an ability of crowd control, which, upon attacking the target, does yield a chance for Whip World to pull the target closer to her. This means that if you catch someone on the first end of their cooldown as just freshly turned around, this does give you the opportunity to keep them there just a little bit longer and stall their cooldown. Inversely, it does mean that if you do mistime it and catch them at the start of their heating phase, it does mean you also yield a chance to accidentally accelerate their heating all the way up to instant completion. Additionally, Whip also applies a hold status on the enemy in question, and hold specifically also applies a no dodge penalty and a negative ailment to the enemy in question, but also slows their heating and cooling down by 25% while the effect is active. So this means that you're not only going to be going just a little bit slower than you were before if you're afflicted by this, but every hit that's incoming and targets you is guaranteed to land no matter what. Thunder Missile on the left arm is a fairly new skill that was added with the Godzilla collaboration a number of months back, but is also nice in the fact that it is a gunpowder skill and an AoE skill, which means it will damage all parts of the target and spread the damage equally. However, the thunder part of it also means that upon attacking the target, you will also stun them in place, and guarantee that you'll buy yourself just a few extra moments of time to either recoup or build a strategy, and without getting crippled or cut down midway because you just weren't fast enough. However, it is also worth noting that the Thunder Affliction also does apply a no-dodge effect, so I think we're kind of seeing a pattern here with Whip World. The biped legs means that Whip World will have relatively solid coverage on all terrains, and that's also not touching on before Dominion comes into play, which will basically negate any kind of terrain compatibility because you're going to be A rank or better on them anyway. Her leg stats, though, are honestly fairly solid, though. With a base mobility of 847, she's off to a very good start in the speed department. Evade of 967 isn't too bad. She can dodge her graze fairly decently as she does decide to. A melee resist of nearly 1500 at 1494, and a shoot resist at 1296 and nearly 1300 are actually very good, though, as this does mean that she can hold her own up close and personal for anyone that does try to get in her personal space, but she can also keep her damage fairly low from anyone trying to take pot shots from her from afar as well. And even with a heavy support of 1, which, weirdly enough, none of her parts are heavy in this case, it is a fairly synergetic leg to use at any given scenario for your female teams. In the armor department, she is fairly bulky there as well, with a head armor of just shy of 3,800, a right arm of just over 3,300, left arm at over 3,400, and legs at nearly 3,800 as well. So, like I said, fairly bulky and pretty decently healthy as far as her damage reduction and her overall HP pool is concerned. So, you're going to have to hit Whip World notably harder than normal to break anything sooner than later. It is also worth noting, though, for what Whip World brings to the table, is that three of her skills in particular, Whip, Thunder Missile, and Follow-Up, are all skills that were previously collaboration only. So with the implementation of Whip World, they are no longer limited to collab units, and from this point forward can be found on other units most likely going forward. All this being said, though, as a pure set score, I do have to rate Whip World a pretty middle-of-the-road 6.5 out of 10, and that's not necessarily because there's anything particularly wrong with her. She is fairly self-synergetic as a whole by herself. Both Whip and Thunder Missile apply statuses that prevent the enemy from being able to dodge, which will synergize very, very well with her leg ability of Follow-Up, which makes her go just a little bit faster in her heating if the target can't dodge. So this means that she's able to either catch the target and whip them a lot harder and a lot faster and more often than normal, or even stun them with another Thunder Missile if she is planning to prolong it and perhaps alternate or stun. And Dominion always is really good anywhere too, as being able to negate the ability of terrain compatibility with just A rank or S rank everywhere is also really nice. However, when it comes to her overall damage output is where she's really hurting though. Because Whip does not deal any kind of pierce damage by itself, so she is going to be kind of hurting there for her overall DPS. And while you could argue that the AoE effect on Missile does kind of counteract this, to a point, it does, but it is also worth noting that if anyone does bring Stat Cleanse to the field, half of what brings Whip and Thunder Missile, literally half of both of them, is effectively thrown out the window, which does overall hurt her viability on the field. As mixed parts, though, I do have to rate her just a little bit higher at a 7 out of 10, primarily for the grounds that you can use Dominion, Whip, and Thunder Missile just about anywhere fairly easily, especially given that none of the parts are heavy. And the leg ability of Follow-Up is really nice too, as if you do manage to catch anyone in a no-dodge phase at all as a cooldown penalty, this doesn't mean you have to apply it yourself. This can be any kind of just cooldown penalty from an attack at all. So say Ghost or Ghost Shot or Beam Sword, which have a no-dodge and no-defend. Anytime there's a no-dodge penalty on the enemy, Follow-Up triggers automatically for just a little bit of a speed boost than you would have gotten normally.